mental understanding. Yeah. Where it's just sitting on earth versus looking at it. And these profound experiences. That was interesting. Really cool concept. You know?
I remember the first time I was here. We were needed a very Judy and I were here. And it's director of plan, CFO. There's 5,000 people here with you. Corporate office.
Just remember. It's not a rush.
Good afternoon. I'm calling this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Town of Gibsons Council to order at 3 o'clock for June 20th, 2023. We're honored to gather here on the traditional territories of the Squamish Nation. I think our agenda is straightforward. There's been no changes, so I need a motion to approve the agenda. Moved Councillor Kroll, seconded Councillor DeAndrade. All those in favor? That motion carries. And our first item of business is a delegation from the Gibsons Community Building Society. So welcome Pam and Vicky.
So this is new since we were last here, so somebody's gonna load this and then we just advance it. Is that how it works? Yeah.
You don't have to point it at the computer,
Just click it and it will happen. So if I click it, it will. Wow,
Pam's
it's magic. Can you hear us if we're standing? Okay, that's great. So I'm Pam Robertson and I'm the volunteer board chair of the Gibsons Community Building Society, and Vicky Ross with me today as our executive director. And it's our pleasure to bring to you our report to community that we presented at our AGM recently, and to tell the town of Gibsons about the work that our society is doing. You all know, I'm sure, that the Gibsons Public Market began as a dream by our founders, the Sontags and Saperskis, but that the town itself was an integral partner in us being able to bring the Gibsons Public Market vision to life. And along with the town of Gibsons is a strategic partner, Community Futures and the Sunshine Coast. So this is a partnership that is very important to us, and one of the reasons we like to come and talk with you about what we are accomplishing in the community. You know that we're a not-for-profit organization, and our mission is simply to help build a healthy, thriving, and caring community in Gibsons, but also our reach is further than Gibsons across the Sunshine Coast. And we have 3 pillars to our mission, the way that we go about this. The first is that we believe in connecting people, when people feel connected to their community, the community is healthier as a result. We also work hard to create opportunities for entrepreneurs so that we support buying local, money circulating in the local community, which also contributes to a healthy, thriving community. And then we work very hard to inspire sustainable behavior for the health of the ocean. Along the way, we created the Nicholas Sontag Marine Education Center to bring more focus to inspiring healthy, sustainable behavior for the health of the ocean. And we also have 3 pillars underpinning our work here. And the first is our very unique collect and release aquarium, which features species from Howe Sound. It is the only aquarium in Howe Sound that features the wildlife that's present in our ocean. And we use that aquarium to get people hooked on wanting to support everything that's possible to keep our ocean healthy. We then educate people about what our ocean is all about and the way that we depend on the ocean for our lifestyle and our enjoyment. And then we encourage people to join us as stewards in helping to protect the health of the ocean. So I'm going to turn it over to Vicki. She's going to talk to you about the work that we've accomplished in this last year.
Thank you. So as I hope you all know, we celebrated our 5th anniversary last April, so we're actually in our 6th, or just finished our 6th year now. But it was our first opportunity to bring a large group back into the building after COVID. It was extremely well received, and people just told us how much they crave those kinds of interactions, and we're looking forward to us opening up the market again. The other thing that we did last year was we brought back the summer night markets. We'd been unable to hold them during COVID, and so after 2 years hiatus, we brought it back, and the community and visitors, everybody just showed us how much they were missed. They were really well attended. We had amazing weather. We were very grateful for that, and we are planning very quickly for this summer's 3 night markets as well. We connected people with our Food Truck Fridays, which was a pilot last year. We scaled it back this year, and we probably will only do 1 or 2 of them because we found that most of the food trucks really just wanted to be part of our night markets. And so we're looking at other ways of bringing them into those types of events. But it was really great to see people of all ages, multi-generational families come out and bring their pets and just have a really enjoyable time outside with music and food. And we introduced our new Demo and Dine series, which was extremely popular. We have found that it's more of a fall-winter project, and so you will see a lot of those happening this fall. But it allowed us to partner with local chefs from different restaurants to bring in and teach people how to cook their food and enjoy a nice meal together using our community kitchen. And of course, our kids' cooking camps. Of course, Councillor Kroll helps us with those. He likes to lead 1 or 2 of them for us. And they're very, very well attended, and people really enjoy them. And we're well on the way of planning those for this year as well. And of course, this picture just says it all. Here is a group of extremely happy people who come into our kitchen during our night markets and do free food, but they also do our Black History Month in February. And they really appreciate the ability to come and use the building for free and share their culture, their food. Sometimes they share literature and music, but it's an ongoing partnership with them, and we really, really enjoy having them in the building. We focused on National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. We were fortunate to get a grant from Heritage Canada in partnership with Regen, Charlene Chanjenko, and we actually ran 2 different sessions. Because the grant came in so late, we did the film for the children in September. We did a 3-day Truth and Reconciliation event. And then we finished the whole project this past March with a panel of filmmakers. And of course, we do all sorts of things to try to use our public space in the atrium. We provide free music every Saturday. We do art displays. We like to showcase local artists and help them generate sales for their art. We participate in the art crawl. And of course, just all sorts of different things are happening in our atrium, and we plan to increase that use. Of course, Pam spoke about our collect and release aquarium. It's We've just got our Canada Summer Job students in place and our co-op students in place, and so we're looking forward to being open more days during the summer. And of course, we also do all of the kids' camps and the releases. And this just draws people of all ages. Grandparents come with their grandkids to participate. The releases are really quite exciting for them, and we're hoping to be able to do one in this fall. And here we are at the Seine Nets. Last year, Sunshine Coast Credit Union sponsored our summer Seine Net series. They're doing it again, so every Wednesday during the summer from, I believe, 10 to 11, our team will be down at the beach in Armours collecting up different creatures with a seine net and then teaching whoever's there, whether it's children or grandparents or parents themselves, what we collect from the water and learning all about it. And so it's a really fun morning activity for them. And of course, anytime we do a beach clean, we have amazing volunteers that come out and participate with us, bring their dogs, bring their kids, and they help us clean up our local beaches. Of course, our partnership with the town of Gibsons, we're extremely proud of it. We work on looking after the eelgrass and monitoring it. This past year, the voluntary no anchor zone markers went out, and we've been monitoring those as well. It's been quite the process, and we're hoping to do some surveying this summer or September so that we can provide you with an update on that project as well. And of course, the last 2 years, we've partnered with the Ocean Legacy Foundation to do a major cleanup of different shorelines. This is a picture of them on Anvil Island, but this past year, we were also able to work with the Seashell Nation and go to Porpoise Bay and pull, I think we pulled 70 tires from that area. Like, it was a significant amount of tires that were pulled. And we are just now in the process of planning for this year's major cleanup, again with Ocean Legacy Foundation. And of course, we have a partnership with the school district, and we have been working very hard to provide classes for the kindergarten, grade 3 and grade 6 children. We also have the DFO Stream to Sea contract, and this was our 3rd year of doing that. And so that's the Salmon in the Classroom program. And so we've actually branched that out to include one of the tanks at the museum, and then we also have one in our own aquarium so that people can see the salmon growing. And the After School Marine Science Club, it's so far focused on girls and non-binary youth, but we're hoping to expand that to be a larger after-school program. And of course, our camps, spring break and summer camps. We are right now filling up the spots for our summer camps, and we're excited to have those going forward. We do both an Ocean Explorers camp for the younger kids that is local beaches and the aquarium, and then we do an older children's camp that is our marine safari camp, where we actually take the kids to Thormanby, to Keats Island, to different places so that they can see what's happening on the shores around the coast. And this is just more, who doesn't love pictures of kids having fun? And then, of course, we create opportunities for entrepreneurs and artists. And of course, Fisherman's Market, they're one of our longest tenants and quite successful downstairs. We have Reds, who, coffee shop and bakery, they do extremely well and have been there for most of the years of the market. Fromage Ricci's, they left just this spring, but they were a longtime tenant as well, and we're currently looking for a new deli to take over that space. We're just about to, we've already posted to look for a deli manager so that we can put a deli in. And this was one of our newer entrepreneurs that came in, Kitchen Classics. And Good Acres, who sold just the end of last year, and Shaggy Jacks, who came in. This is one of our success stories. They came in to use our pop-up shop, which is really an incubator space, to see how they would do in a retail setting and to see whether their customer base was good enough for them to continue that way. They felt that they were. They saw the opportunity to purchase Good Acres. They bought it. They merged their two businesses together and are doing quite well at the market right now. And of course, Amel's Bistro. And then, of course, we support community economic development by inviting entrepreneurs, artisans to participate in our night markets and our different events. There's our winter market, which is a traditional holiday time event, but we also just last weekend launched our very first health wellness Fest, which went really well, and we expect it to be an annual event. And of course, just having different artists at the market. And I'm going to pass it back to Ben.
We're very proud of the work that we're doing in community, and of course, our board, I'd like to speak now from the perspective of our board. We have a very hardworking and talented board working on 4 strategic priorities. Vicky's talked a lot about the social enterprise revenue. That's just trying to earn as much revenue as we can from the building and the programs to be able to cover the costs of what we do. The impact that we're having in community, which Vicky has also spoken to, and that impact is extremely important because we always need to fundraise to support the work we're doing, and if the impact is not strong enough, the fundraising isn't sufficient to support our work. So we're very grateful, and that's what I want to talk a little bit about, is the work that our volunteers and staff do, and of course the work that we do on governance. Quite a while ago, we set a goal to grow the amount of revenue we earn ourselves from the building and the programs. And so you have a GPM line, which is Gibsons Public Market, and the Nicholas Sontag Marine Education Center. And you can see over the years, 2017 was our first year, was not a full year. The business case that Jerry Sapersky put together envisioned that the Gibsons Public Market would earn 75% of what it costs to run our programming, and that we would fundraise for 25%. So that metric is a metric we're still trying to achieve. So we've been working hard at it, making some progress. We got a little bit of a level of support in 2021 with the government COVID relief payments. Those disappeared at the beginning of January 2022, but people weren't comfortable coming back into our building until about July of last year, so we had a little bit of a setback on that journey. And with the Nicholas Sontag Marine Education Center, we've set a goal of, it's a charity, so the work is more charitable. We can't earn as much revenue as a charity of covering our costs by 60% of the program revenues that we earn. So we're on track, we're making progress in that regard. And then the flip side of this, of course, is the fund development. In the report to community that I shared with you in the middle, it shows you our 2022 financial statements. And I just wanted to draw your attention to the fundraising that goes on every year to support the work of the society. The Gibsons Community Building Society raised over $120,000 in donations. Fundraising events, think of our gala. Our gala is our major fundraiser, which is coming up this fall, $172,000. In-kind contributions of $38,000. Includes the support we get from suppliers such as our major corporate partner TELUS, but also importantly, the waiver of the realty taxes that the Town of Gibsons Council approves. That's a very important contribution to us. And then various amounts of grants every year. If you look at the Marine Society, it's the same story, donations of over $100,000. Fundraising events of 22, and then grants funding of just about $130,000. So it adds up to $531,000 that was raised to support our work in the community last year. And this is something that we have to do every year. And obviously our donors and our volunteers and our staff are a key part of that. I would like to, my spotlight on debt, this is one of the things for me that is very important. When we expanded and renovated our building in 2017. The building is worth about just the building, not the land, is worth about $4 million. And so ending up with debt about $1.7 million, it sounds like a good thing, and it is a good thing. It was a wonderful accomplishment, but we're a not-for-profit society having to pay that debt back and the interest on the debt. So it's not as easy, and we do rely on our donors to help us. So I'm very grateful to say that we've been able to move that debt down to just under 1.3 million in the 4 years that has passed, but it costs us over $113,000 a year to service that debt. So getting rid of that debt is a high priority for us. The people. This all happens because of the people. And we have hundreds of volunteers that are helping across so many aspects of what we do. These are just a few photos of people who are stepping up to help us. These are some of our early volunteers at the very beginning of our journey. People that are serving on boards, helping us with the gala, helping us with interpretation in the aquarium, the night markets. It's just so many things that people are doing. Because we have so many different activities happening, we can match the interests of volunteers. And so we have a lot of people that step up to help us. And of course, fundraising. We're grateful to TELUS as our major corporate sponsor, and last year we did our gala as a hybrid event. And that meant that we were streaming the gala to people at homes and gathered with friends, but we also had people in the Gibsons public market for the first time after several years. And we were very pleased to pay tribute to the Reeves family and Gibsons Building Supplies, who celebrated their 75th anniversary. They're the longest-serving family-owned business on the Sunshine Coast. And it was particularly special for us because Barry was able to be there. And as you know, he passed away in January of this year. I would take this moment to say that our gala is coming up on October the 14th, and this year we're honoring Ed Hill. And we're honoring him for the work he has done connecting with First Nations culture and history, inspiring paddling and the starting of the Gibsons Paddle Club, the work that he does to support artists on the Sunshine Coast, and the work that he does to help people that are recovering from addictions. So we're looking forward to that event. But it was kind of fun. People were at home also participating in our gala in this hybrid fashion, which we intend to do again this year. And we have so many donors that have come out to help us. And for people that were at home, they were able to watch this all happen in front of them on their screen, and that the meal was catered to them at home. We have now, since we went virtual with this gala, we now sell more tickets than we can hold people in the building. So we're very excited about that and grateful to our community for supporting us. And of course, a fun event. Last year it was the Rockfish. This year, if you come down to the Gibsons Public Market today, the orcas went up on display, and there's almost 90 or so orcas that are come back. That auction is. But it's a fun community event and also a fundraiser to support our Marine Society. And at the end of the year, we run a year-end giving campaign to help us fund our work. And last year, the Gibsons Community Building Society exceeded its goal and raised $77,000, which pretty much all of that goes to help us with our debt. That's the work of that year-end campaign. And then the Marine Education Center, the money we raise helps us with programming. We exceeded our target there as well. So we're very, very grateful we have an amazing community, as you know. We're grateful to the people who are supporting us because this is community gathering space. And our vision is only possible with great community support. So Vicki and I just wanted to bring you this report, and we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, very thorough report, but I'll look to see if we have any questions. I see Councillor DeAndrade.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a question. I just want to congratulate all of you, because I know it's a humongous effort to do what you do. So yeah, congratulations. And even just seeing even the increase with the aquarium that has a direct relationship with us, that was incredible too, the participation. Too bad that Jenny left, but I'm hoping you get someone at her level.
We do. I mean, Jenny, her family's from Scotland, and the travel across the Atlantic was, just being too much. So we were really sorry to see her go. But Krista Lalibrite is taking over her role. She was previously our programs manager in the Marine Education Center. So we have somebody quite capable in taking on that role.
Great. Yeah, look forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Lumley?
Yes, thank you. I mean, obviously, I'm a huge supporter, and I'm very appreciative, I think, on behalf of the whole town, all the work that you do. I do have a specific question, though, and I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but there's obviously the agenda has the construction of a children's playground attached to it.
My next presentation, actually.
Okay. Should I ask this question after that presentation?
Is it related to that?
Well, it's kind of related to the whole idea of, I mean, I guess there's a philosophy that you guys have or that you're carrying through on, but I know the primary goal, like you said, is to pay down your debt. So, part of me in my brain thinks you're going to spend a lot of money probably building this playground. Would it be better off to pay down the debt? Now, and then maybe fundraise for the playground. I don't know, like, I'm not in your, I'm not part of the financial, inside, but I just wondered, that was probably my question, was that, the thought process in that, I guess.
So
Maybe just address that in the, because you're doing a presentation
Yes,
on
I
that,
will.
right? So,
Yes.
yeah. Are there any questions on the first? Okay, well, I think we're ready to move to
Okay.
the
All
playground
right.
piece,
Super.
yeah.
Let's see if there's- Okay, I'm gonna break this into pieces for you because it's a little bit hard to see it on the screen when it's just one big slide. But a couple of things I'd like to say before I get going. First of all, I'd like to express a lot of gratitude in a couple of places. One is to Pat Campbell. You may know Pat, she's a landscape architect that works in the town of Gibsons, and she's also a grandmother. And so Pat has created this concept of a park and play center for us pro bono, so we're very grateful for that. And I think she's done a wonderful job, and it reflects the fact that she has young grandchildren that love to go and play at play centers. I would also like to express a significant amount of gratitude to our donor and his family. And maybe this is where I address that right up front, your question, Stafford, because our donor lost his wife several years ago, 2 years ago, and she had just come full-time to the Sunshine Coast, and she wanted to get involved with the Gibsons Public Market. There are 12 grandchildren, 11 between the ages of 3 and 13. So you can see that play centers are hitting a sweet spot in their family. And she loved to bring the kids to the Gibsons Public Market, to the aquarium in particular, the atrium space where the kids could be. But she felt that it would benefit the Gibsons Public Market to have more family-friendly experiences. And so this idea of a play center has come up as a way to honor her memory, and this park and play center will be named in her honor. This is a generous gift that our donor is making, and it is going to allow us not only to create this play center, but it will also allow us to make a significant reduction in our debt. And we are very grateful for that. So I will start by saying that I have shared this concept with our neighbors. So to above I guess it's to the north, maybe you would call it. The Longman Hagedorn property is to the north of us. And so Dave Longman is very pleased by what we are proposing to do and committed to work with us to actually help us reduce the cost of implementing this area, because he has equipment and crew that can help us do this work, and also with Klaus Furness of the Gibsons Marina. So they both had an opportunity to see this. They both see how that having this park and play center can be an advantage to their developments and their businesses as well. So a couple of things. Think to the left, Gower Point Road, and think to the right, the waterfront. And so what we are proposing to do, we never had the money when we expanded the Gibsons Public Market to do the proper landscaping work. And so if you've been down and along that hedge and the gravel, it's not very attractive. So the idea is that we would transform that space into this walkway, park area. This will be elevated, so all of this will be accessible. The kind of funny triangle space or angled space at the end is the Bay Road right-of-way that is not part of the marina's encroachment agreement for parking, so it's under the control of the town. So we're coming forward asking the council for two things. One is to allow us to modify our lease. We lease lot 44 and 45 for our parking lot, and that lease allows us to do things like hold the summer night markets and things like that. But it doesn't specifically talk about a park, and so we would like to have the lease amended to approve what we would like to do with this space. And also if the town would grant us an encroachment agreement for that end of the Bay Road right-of-way so that we can put our play equipment in there. So, and then I think that is what we need approval for. because and we will need a few permits along the way. So Leslie Ann has told us we'll need there's some scrub trees in this area right now, the Bay Road right-of-way, that will need to be removed. We don't intend to dig. I will tell you that this is an archaeologically sensitive area. So we need 1.5 feet of soft material so that the children have a soft surface to come off the play equipment. So we will be ramping up the pathway to that elevated, 1.5 feet above. Now, part of that land is low right now, so I think it won't be elevating actually quite as much as one might think because of that. But that would be the process where people will be able to walk from Gower Point right through eventually. Now, our funds take us to the end of the play center. But if the harbor project goes ahead, then I know that Dave Longman will, take it the rest of the way to the waterfront park, because we had a conversation about that. And so but even without Dave doing that, people will be able to walk from the play center to the waterfront park. And it'll create a car-free way for people to actually move from Gower Point Road to the water and back again. So the other thing I will just say to you is our parking lot is kind of like a fan. And what we're going to do is straighten it out a little bit. So towards Gower Point Road, we're taking back about 3.5 feet so that we can cover up our garbage containers and give enough space that we have a proper entrance to this park. So the only other thing I wanted to say on this one is that we are adding 8 trees as a result of this. So we are removing some of the scrub trees at the end of the Bay Road right-of-way, but we're adding in 3 trees, 2 of the weeping nuka, 3 of the starlight dogwood, and 3 of the Pacific purple vine maples. And so they will be throughout the drawings. So the circles that you see there are all trees. So breaking this down into the park as the first point of access, there will be a wooden entranceway behind the recycling area so that the people will come under a wooden arbor. This is going to be a landscaped area with a pathway that is slowly sloping up. And it's designed for fun things that kids can do, like hop on paving stones. There'll be lots of logs. They can walk on logs. We may change out some of the logs for a few more benches, realizing that people, as they get older, might not find it as easy to sit on logs versus a bench. So we might make some changes along that, but there will be logs for the kids to climb on, picnic tables. You can see some of the pictures that Pat has given us as for what some of her ideas are. She sees a driftwood feature. She's given a photo of an example of some benches, some picnic tables, some paving stones that the kids will be able to hop along or walk along under the trees, and then an idea of what the path would look like. And then at the front between the parking spots and the path will be a rain garden sort of swale to collect water. And then, of course, we have an example of a sensory board where children are able to play as they come along this area. Now we enter into the play area, and I'll talk about the main piece of play equipment in a minute, which is to the left, but give you a sense. There's some photos down the bottom. So in this play center, we have talk tubes, so the kids will be able to talk to each other through these talk tubes. I had fun when I was presenting this proposal to our donor's family. 2 of the boys were really keen to know if there would be diggers in this play center, and I was really pleased to be able to say yes. There's 2 of these diggers in this. They have an area set aside for the diggers that are shown there. Underneath the tree, there will be what I think of as log stumps that kids can walk along and balance on. There'll be a climbing rock. There'll be another sensory board. We've got some trees in this area. And one of the feature pieces of equipment is this spinner, which is kind of a team event for children playing. And then the feature play equipment is this beautiful yellow cedar structure. It's similar to the materials I'm seeing at Horseshoe Bay Waterfront Park. It seems like it's a similar supplier. And so this is safe for children 2 years and up, and there's lots of different options, 3 different ways that the children can climb up onto this structure. And so it has a lot of play value, and it has a little bit of shade as well. And then this gives you an example of children climbing up. There's notches in the log. There's a rope area that they can climb or at the front. And then there's also some musical instruments for the younger children. And then there is the slide. So I think that's my last slide, yes. So Manny has a staff report, which I know is coming up further in the agenda. But I think that's what I wanted to say, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions prior to the staff report? Councillor Thompson and Councillor D'Andretti.
That looks like a lot of fun. Couple questions. Where the car park is, where the vehicles are parked, what is, like, my immediate concern of looking at this is kids playing in and out of parked cars and
Yeah, there
just
will
how
be
crazy
actually a
busy.
fence along, yeah, I'll go back to my, there definitely is a fence along the front there, which will separate the park from the parking area, yeah.
And on the other side?
On
How
the other
does?
side, we would work with Dave Longman in terms of the way, it depends on what's happening with his project, as you know, and where
course.
the elevation of the land is going to be. If they go ahead with the project as they propose, that they're building up the elevation, so he will likely put some kind of a retaining wall. So we're going to work with him on that as we see what happens with his project.
Right. And one other question, I couldn't find it, but what is the square footage of that whole play area?
Actually,
What do we?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I don't have that. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. It's, I'm trying to think of how wide that's going to be, but I think it's going to be somewhere around 15 to 20 feet wide in the park. And then it'll be wider, at the area where the play center equipment is.
Right, yeah, thanks. Yeah, just to get a sense of how much space it is actually taking up. And then towards the end of it, you said on that other end, it is access then to the foreshore.
You can walk right now through the marina, where they have the curbs. There's a place you can walk right in front of those curbs. It's not fantastic, but it's a clear path to the waterfront park.
Yeah, and I have one other question, if you don't mind. How, it's so beautiful, there's so many amazing interactive things for kids here. How attached are you to that location? Like, I wonder why Dougal Park, which is very close proximity, wouldn't be considered to have it there.
Our donor and his family wanted to enhance the family-friendly experience of the Gibsons Public Market. It was really to find more things for kids to do with their families when they were at the market. So that was where the interest lay in doing that. Yeah, and we think we found a good solution to be able to accomplish that goal. It took us a while, though, I will tell you that. Yeah.
Councillor D'Andretti.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Councillor Thompson asked one of the questions. So thank you. Obviously, I have concerns with the garbage and the recycling. I mean, recently we had an accident because we're dealing with big trucks, right, that they don't have too much visibility. So I understand the fence between the parking lot. I mean, obviously, there's also a little bit of issues with pollution because cars emit greenhouses, I guess, pollution. But I don't know. I just feel a little bit nervous with this entrance because you have the recycling right there, and the recycling will be backing right with, I don't know, and then you have kids walking around. I don't know if there has been a lot of thoughts on that, but when I look at that, I mean, the idea is lovely, obviously, but it's just the location. I feel quite nervous. And then another concern is, I wonder if some of the parents, maybe the kids are a little bit older, then they will go to the market to have some fun and will leave the kids there. So even though with the fence, I believe some kids will be unattended, and that's what makes me nervous too. So that's my concern at this point.
Definitely, well, there's children there now, right? I mean, there's families with children that come to the Gibsons Public Market now. So this actually creates a safer way for the children to be in the space because it's going to be definitely separated from the cars. I will say to you that right now we have our recycling bins where at the front where they are right now. So that's the experience that we've had we haven't had any kinds of an issues with that in the 6 years we've been in operation, but they have also not been contained. And so the idea is like they're just sitting there. So now what will happen is we will actually contain those, like build a container around those. So we have the containers sort of out of, so they won't be quite as much of an eyesore. And I don't know, Vicki, if you have any thoughts on that, but it has not been a problem for the truck to come and receive the
Yeah, I
bins.
mean, right now the trucks are coming quite early in the morning, but there is the thought too that we do have a spot over on this side that we also have been considering for the garbage and recycling. But the plan had been to have this wall kind of around it, so that if you were coming in from the fenced area, you wouldn't have access to that at all, and the truck would come in this side. So that's, but I mean, it is a good concern to bring up.
It's
Counselor
very
Kroll.
important that anyway, your point is a very important one.
Thank you, Mayor White. Thank you for the presentation. To Councillor Dendretti's point about the containers, the entrance to a park, having experienced good weather at the market with the night markets, the smell from those containers is gross. So that, as an entrance feature to a play area, I find, a little potentially off-putting. What is your timeline?
Well,
Just, if we were to say, yes, are you putting shovels in the ground tomorrow?
no,
No.
this is our busiest time of the year, and so we would be doing the planning around this and hoping to start probably after the gala, sort of in late October, and then work on it in the spring. Ideally, if all went well, we would have an opening about a year from now.
Okay, because I've got several concerns. First of all, I don't see this playground as accessible to all children, which I think is a huge issue. Soft gravel paths, you can't even push a stroller down properly.
No, it won't be soft gravel at all. It'll definitely be totally accessible for strollers, wheelchairs, everything.
Okay, so kids falling off logs will be falling onto hard-packed ground then?
Well, I mean, there's some green space in here. It's, the logs are off the side of the path. They're not right on the path, yeah. But we obviously
But,
will take a look.
even looking at the play
So
devices,
different than the beach, I would
Yep.
say, yeah.
where I'm getting is, if I had a child in a wheelchair, they can't use this park.
And
If
why-
I'm a parent in a wheelchair, I couldn't take my child to that park. The market is supposed to be all-inclusive, and I feel, I appreciate that this is a memorial to someone, but, Mr. Longman and Mr. Hagedorn in their project have a playground already proposed. We have Dougal Park, which is close. So we're putting 3 parks within spitting distance, and we have an upper village with no children's playground other than the elementary school. The other thing is, if you put in your park and the harbor gets their approval, I don't think children are going to be too keen on going into a playground with construction equipment thundering 50 feet away from them.
The first thing I would say is that the area along the harbor development will be totally secured before the construction starts. We won't have any danger or risk between the children
Let's
and.
ask everyone to try to speak through the chair, just to try to
My
keep the
apologies.
quick interrupting and things happening, but yeah. go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so that and the other thing I would say is the play equipment that is planned at the harbor front is different from the play equipment that is planned here. So this is something that I think that a child in a wheelchair would be able to participate in. I mean, children can often, my cousin has a daughter in a wheelchair, and she would be able to be on a piece of play equipment like that. So she wouldn't be able to be on the climber. I agree with that, wouldn't be possible, but I think that this type of equipment would be able to be possible. And she would, and we can take her right down to the beach in her wheelchair. So I can guarantee you that we will be able to have wheelchairs go up that path and into that area, and the same with strollers.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Lumley right now, and then we can maybe have some follow-up later, but.
Yes, thanks. Through the mayor, I just wondered, like when I first, because I've heard of the playground before, and my immediate thought was, it's a great idea because every major center, like businesses, much like the market, we have Persephone and then we have Banditry, and it's not that parents don't want to be with their kids, but once in a while it's nice to go have a drink and let your kids run around. And when I looked at this, I thought, and this is just me spitballing, would it be better to have the playground and that kind of area like next to the market instead of across the parking lot? And maybe move the parking lot to where you want to have the playground? And then it would alleviate any dangers of kids in the parking, and people would just go in and park, and you'd come in and your kids could just go at will, and then you could go into the market and get something to drink or eat, and you could sit out there and watch your kids. The parking lot, I'm not against the playground, but the parking lot kind of looks, it's kind of a weird setup having a parking lot between the playground and the building, only from the perspective of a family gathering place. That's all I mean, you're not gonna get a liquor license for the playground, so, sorry, yeah.
No, I was letting you finish.
Yeah, no, that's my immediate thought, would it be like a communal space, like right next to the marketplace? This way, the parking lot kind of, I don't know, it just kind of segregates it from the playground, so that was just one of my thoughts, yeah.
Okay, to respond to
ahead.
that? That's was one of the ideas that we explored, but there's not enough width of to extend the parking against the property line with the harbor development doesn't give us enough room to put this. We need that Bay Road, like the extra width that we're getting at the Bay Road right away to accommodate any kind of meaningful play equipment. So we went through, and Manny I can speak to as well, has been down there we worked on this for probably a year and a half to try to find the right space. Now I will say to you, if I go back to this one here, so the dotted line that you see running just here, this dotted line is the property line. And so in that area, there are currently cement barriers separating the marina parking from the Gibsons Public Market parking. So the idea is that we will have a safe egress across, from the play center to the market where the barriers are, so cars are not able to go through in that area. So that is the way that we'll make sure that the children, and the space is not actually very wide. So if you're up on the deck at Amel's, you can clearly see what's going on. If you're at the tables outside, outside of the market, you're sitting there, you can still see what's going on. So in the end, this seemed to be the best after trying so many different iterations, the best way to accomplish the goal. And we think it'll actually be really lovely and a nice way for people to avoid cars and interfacing with cars to get from Gower Point Road to the beach and back. It'll be a nice walkway for people.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor White. I'm just wondering about, when you put in children's play equipment, there's bound to be impacts on your insurance.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what increased costs you're going to incur?
Not yet, but we do. There will be increased insurance costs, and also there'll be maintenance of this equipment in this area. And so that is I don't have the specific cost, but we do know that there's going to be increased costs as a result of that. And I can also say to you that all of the outside of the building is pretty much maintained by our volunteers, and so that we would expect the same thing will happen with this in terms of the landscaping, and the cleaning up that needs to take place in this area. But definitely, and the recommendation for the change in the lease, and the encroachment agreement includes the responsibility that we take to make sure we have insurance in place and that we maintain it. And then at the end of the lease, any equipment that's there is part of the town's, assets if you want it, or we would remove it if you didn't.
Councillor Kroll.
Just as a follow-up through you, Mayor White, this would be to staff. Because we're on title with the public market, is that not correct?
It depends on the building itself, yeah?
Just on the building? My question is with respect to insurance and liability, would the town be on the hook for exposed liability if there was?
Mayor, absolutely not. That's why the agreements are important. The license to occupy transfers full responsibility for the operation of that site to the market. And the same with the encroachment agreement would do that. So they're required to maintain insurance, and the town is an added insured, so we're not, don't have any responsibilities for that, neither for maintenance or for liability for that matter.
Councillor D'Andretti.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to ask on this line, because I remember when we had volunteers that just wanted to beautify Park Road, I remember there was huge amount of insurance, well, at least huge for them. I think it was around $900 or $1,000. So in this case, it wouldn't be applicable because there's full transfer to the society.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. That's very different situations there. And our own insurance, the Municipal Insurance Association, they want to see that, this is part of their recommendations, is that we protect the town from any type of liability. In the case of Parkland, in that situation, those were folks that were volunteering to maintain a town asset. And in that sense, we sometimes are able to add some of those groups as sort of under the town's insurance, but not for something like this.
So just follow up the question. And in case of a worse scenario, an accident, whether with the truck or whatever, but an accident. I know we had lawsuits for years because of an accident in town land. So in this case, it would be the same, we would be completely out
Through
of
you,
the
Mr. Mayor,
picture.
that's correct. It's
Yeah,
100% indemnification.
okay.
Okay, so we have a staff report. Is there any more? Yeah, okay, Councillor Thompson.
Through you, Mayor. I'm curious to the degree that you've had consultation from parents with young children on what their feelings are with, some of the concerns that we're obviously expressing here and what their feedback may have been.
We have spent some time with our donor's family, which is a family of quite a few young children. And I can also tell you that we have a lot of families that come to the Gibsons Public Market. So there's families and children in that parking area continuously. We have our school groups come as well. So our goal is to make sure that it's very safe that's top of mind for us too. There's nothing that we want more than to make sure that these families are safe. But we're absolutely confident because we have a permanent barrier already. Nobody can drive between the Gibsons Public Market and the Gibsons Marina. It's not possible to go through there. The only entities that can go through that are the fire department if they need to, right? So we know that we can create a safe passageway between the market and the play center for those families. So the people that we've talked about for this already, everybody's pretty excited about it because it's currently, as you know, not the most attractive and usable space. And this is going to green it and create this wonderful amenity for the community. Yeah, we're excited about it. And it's not really designed to be a destination playground, which Councillor Coral was talking a little bit about earlier. It's not a huge playground, so it's more designed to be for people visiting. They're already coming to the Gibsons Public Market, and it gives them more things to do with their family. And the night markets is another example of that because it will create more things for children to do during those types of events. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we, as we've been
Thank you.
talking about, yeah, thank you. We have a staff report on this item, so we've been already discussing the item, and I don't know if, I mean, the staff report's pretty straightforward. I don't know if there's anything to add, really, your CAO?
Through Mr. Mayor, I think council has covered a lot of the, from that perspective, and I don't know if we have anything more specifically. Two distinct pieces of property, and our recommendations there are based on what we think will best protect the town from the discussion on the liability we were having, and makes use of that space. Yeah, that's probably all I needed to add at this
Okay.
point.
Are there any questions for staff on this report? Okay. Seeing none, there is a recommendation related to the report. And that's that staff authorize the construction of the new playground on this portion of Lot 45 of Gower Point Road and the north end of Bay Road. And prepare an amendment to the license of occupation. Councillor Kroll?
Through you, Mayor White, we haven't received the report yet, have we?
Received the report? We don't receive reports. So I haven't done that all term. We've got, when we had approved the agenda, we received the report. I mean, it's on the agenda. Yeah. Okay, so you'll move the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Discussion of the recommendation. Councillor Kroll.
In light of the timeline that's being considered, I would prefer to defer a decision on this until we see what's happening with the harbor. To the point I was making, to create a lovely playground and then have it sitting adjacent to a construction site for potentially 2 years. There's going to be dust, there's going to be ground movement, there's going to be vibration, there's going to be noise, which I think could impact on the quality of the equipment in the playground. It's going to deteriorate. I'm a little concerned creating something next to a potentially large construction site. The comment that there will be separation between the playground and the site, that's not going to separate noise and dust. And I have concern knowing the expense of playground equipment. I would prefer to see this deferred until we have some sort of better resolution on the harbor project.
Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, I guess it's a question for I don't know, for you, maybe for the mayor. It seems like we're in charge of, like, what the recommendation isn't really approving the park, because that's already been approved by the donor. I'm assuming that the market with our staff have broached all these different angles. I mean, obviously they've heard our concerns or maybe some of our ideas or what we might think, but I don't know. Am I missing the point? Are we like approving the park? Like, this is their concern? I'm not sure it's our concern, because we're just approving them to be able to build the park through donated funds. I don't want council to get dragged into, like, whether it's the town's part, because I guess it's the society's part. It's really not ours. But I don't know. Maybe you can clarify that.
I think the CAO might be able to clarify. I mean, I do think it kind of, when we get hypothetical about what other things maybe being approved nearby, or I don't think we can really do that, personally. I mean, we're just looking at, is this an appropriate place for this concept? And we can't do that with the development next door either, right? We can't kind of go, well, there might be a park here, so we want you to delay your development. I don't really want to go down that road.
That was my point, sorry to interrupt, but I was like thinking, if David Longman had never been born, you're probably still gonna go forward with this park, so that was my.
That's how we need to look at things.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I think on a technical level, the motion is to authorize the construction, but also there's the amendment to the license of occupy of the lots too, which is a very technical piece that needs to be done, I understand. So, CAO can elaborate on that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's one of those delicate points, and I spoke with Mr. Robertson about this as well. It's just, with council, formally, you'd be authorizing a change to a lease these folks already have. And under that lease, any changes to the layout of the land, whether it's for parking and stuff, has to typically be, the landlord in this case has to be notified and approve those. So you're approving changes to that. It's not so much that council is approving the expenditure or even the design. In some ways, it's a courtesy to council to see what you guys are going to build there, notwithstanding the validity of the questions you've raised, but strictly speaking, we're dealing with a tenant landlord issue. That's the tenant is asking to make changes to the site.
Councillor DeAndretti.
Thank you. I think the question that should be asked is whether there was a planning or for this part of the lot that is owned by the town, if there would be any implications, because right now it's hard for me to think about that, but I don't know in the long term. So I think this would be a sort of an important question, because the moment we allow will be kind of at least a very long term, so.
CAO.
Through Mr. Mayor, certainly. The parking, when this lot was made available as a lot, was to help the market create more parking. The way that the lots are sort of structured, they're a bit odd sized, so we couldn't really add much more parking to what's there. So this is just making use of the remnants, of what remains from lot 45 in particular, and we are suggesting adding this triangular piece, which really makes the park more viable, because otherwise we haven't been able to do anything with that space, and that's been part of the challenge. But we don't have an alternative other than to pave it, and you see it at use, ends up being where kind of, pardon the term, sort of we dump stuff in there. There's garbage cans, there's all, and it certainly could use an improvement, whether it's a parking lot, a playground or not. But it's just making use of the space there.
Councillor Lumley.
Yeah, thanks. Through the mayor, I think the long-term plan is just the viability of the market. And I assume that if they think that this helps them, then I guess that's our long-term plan.
More discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? The motion carries. Now to item 4.2. Sorry, now to item 4.2, which is a zoning amendment for two duplexes at 565 Gibsons Way. There's a thorough report on this item. There have been some modifications to this report too, due to some good questions that council's asked since it's come in. So I hope everyone has the most updated version. And I'll look to council for further questions about this report and this proposal. I will say too that on this item in particular, it was the special meeting later today was not called for that. It wasn't on the agenda, but I did suggest in our agenda setting that we could put it on there just in case, just so council could have the option of moving forward with it I mean, the initial recommendations are not, they're not to actually pass first reading or anything. It's just to move ahead with looking at getting that all set up, that process set up. So I thought that if we have enough of a discussion today and we want to move ahead with it, then we can put it on the council agenda to move ahead with. That's why it's there as well. And I'll look to questions. Councillor DeAndretti.
Just a clarification, are we already commenting on the report? Or I don't know if staff is going to present or we're going to go straight?
No,
Okay.
as I mentioned before, we're not doing,
Okay, that's fine. Mayor, I have already expressed my concerns with this report because there was no mention that this lot is on view protection. So proposing already an amendment without considering, and especially the proposed lot, it's not even in any view protection. So that to me, it's not, I think it's frankly disrespectful to our community, for the people who lives around, because no mention, and if council has not paid attention, then perhaps this wouldn't even be touched upon, which I don't think it's a good way of creating a report. I also have concerns because the report says that, actually, it was clarified that this is just about the zoning. But when council approves a zoning, it's tied up to what is going in this area. So not to have an analysis of the DPA 8, or it doesn't leave room. So we're going to approve this zoning and then come back and discuss the project? And what about if the project doesn't even fit the zoning? So I found I don't feel comfortable in going through this process. And then if I may ask a question, the new zoning proposed, the zoning says that it has to have a minimum of 1,000 square meters. This is also not discussed in the report. But this lot has only 929. So I don't know if, it's to me, it's, I don't know, the fact that there's no mention, there's nothing in the report. And
Could I stop you there just so that maybe we can, it might be helpful to frame
Okay.
some of these concerns as questions for staff?
Okay.
Like I think that last one, for example, might be, could we just kind of reframe some of these? I mean, I'll start with view protection. What are the ramifications on view protection of this?
Under Part 5 of the zoning bylaw, we have the view protection. So Section 5.01 talks about the general view protection zone, and that looks at specific zoning, and it looks at R1, 2, and R3. So because this lot is currently R3, it would be in the view protection area, and that view protection area has a maximum gross floor area depending on the size of the lot. And then it talks about a side yard open to the sky shall be provided for a minimum width of 1.5 meters for the lee side and 4.5 meters for the sum of both yards. Now, in the report, we've explained that it does meet that intent. It's got 3 meters on one side, and I think it's 2.2 meters on the other side. So it is slightly skewed to one side so that you do have a view corridor from uphill properties. Now, Councillor DeAndrade had spoken about building height in terms of the R3 zone, and the maximum building height for the R3 zone currently is 8 meters. Now, the RCL zone that we are proposing to rezone it to has a maximum height of 8 meters for a particular type of roof pitch, which that's what it meets currently, or 8.5 meters if you go for a steeper pitch. So right now, the only thing that would technically be different would be the gross floor area. Now, when we're looking at the view protection area, it's talking about the gross floor area of a principal building. The RCL zone is going to have two principal buildings, so there'll be two duplexes. So when you look at the maximum gross floor area for each principal building, it would still meet that intent as well. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you. Councilor DeAndretti?
Mayor, the way I interpret this, because the current zone says a principal building in the RCL zone must not, sorry. Sorry, my concern for the new zone is because it talks a principal building. So if we had only one building, the impact of the view will be quite different if we have two buildings, because now you have a second building that is quite higher because there's a slope. So that's, to me, not having even a discussion and just saying, well, this is okay. It's quite different. One thing is to have one single building that will be more probably in the middle of the lot. There will be some sort of impact. Now we have two buildings, and the report is saying, well, the two buildings meet the view protection, but it doesn't really meet, because the current view talks about one single building, and I think this is important to be discussed. And
That's a bigger picture kind of question. Is our view protection, I mean, all kind of under the assumption that there's one building on each lot, like it's for all for single family homes? I wouldn't be surprised the way that Gibsons has evolved over the years if that's kind of the assumption. But when that was written, I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can talk about garden suites. So, for instance, this view protection area doesn't talk about garden suites being there. So you have your single family home, but it doesn't talk about where your garden suite would be. So technically, if you're looking at this lot and you're looking at redeveloping it under the current zone, you could have a duplex with secondary suites in each side, and then have a garden suite, so a maximum of 5 units. And that garden suite could be located on the property within the setbacks, obviously, and it wouldn't that gross floor area wouldn't be impacted by or limited by that stipulation in the view protection area.
Any other councillors want to ask questions? I think Councillor DeAndretti may have more, but I just want to.
thank you. Well, that regards the public hearing. The report proposes that there's no public hearing. And to me, I mean, the fact we talk about transparency, community engagement, and having some bearing on view protection without public hearing, I don't think this is also a good service for our community. So that's
Okay,
on.
we don't have, I'm just asking for questions right now for staff. I mean, we don't have we're not debating a motion yet.
Okay.
So, do we have, Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, as you know, I lived there. I owned the house years ago. My one question is, I didn't see it in here, but doesn't mean that it's not in the report. But I fell down the driveway when I did live there because there's ice, and yeah, there's water coming down there. There seems to be a vein of water that won't go away. But even when I look at this, the driveway doesn't look as sloped on the renderings, and all the parking's in the back. I just wonder what might happen if two cars or somebody's leaving and somebody's coming at the same time. I'm not sure. Somebody's going to have to back out onto Gibson's Way, like a blind spot, or someone's going to. Anyway, it was more of a practical safety concern for, just with respect to the driveway and parking and so on.
Planning Department?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the applicant is available, so we could see if he wants to have a quick response to that.
Hello there, can you hear me?
We can hear. I think we maybe need to turn the volume up. see ourselves.
Okay, hang on.
Okay, we can see you now too. Great.
There we go. There we go. Hello, councilors and mayor. Sorry, there's a little bit of feedback here, so bear with me. Yeah, with regards to the driveway, Katie and I were actually just discussing that. We were talking about the potential for reducing the slope on the driveway some more. Right now, I believe it's at 18 degrees. Not existing today, but the renderings are at 18. I believe existing today, it's at about a 20 or 21 degree slope. So it's quite substantial. But we can lower that to about 15 or 16 relatively easy. And we do have the potential to put in water lines as well as a heated driveway if required.
And there were concerns about the width of the driveway too, about, somebody coming in and somebody going out at the same time, and potential for that causing a gridlock.
I believe the bottom 3 meters have to be no more than 5 or 6 degree slope, and it can also be much wider to allow for a car to pull on the side and let another car go by.
Okay, thanks. I think that answers the questions for now. There might be more. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just had one note. Something I noticed while I was watching this meeting. The renderings actually aren't for 8 suites in total. It's for 6. So I don't know if that plays a part in any of this, but it's something to note probably.
Yeah, I think that's understood. We talked earlier about how we just wanted to make sure we had our updated documents. There was an earlier document that went out that suggested that 8, but so there's a little confusion we're still working through, but we've been fixing it the last couple of days.
No problem. Okay.
Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, we've had a property on that same road and a 21 degree slope. We've had to manage the challenges of a very deep slope driveway. So having had firsthand experience, much like Councillor Lumley, 6 units there, to me, that's the biggest. I've got a lot of concerns about this, but the biggest concern is the number of units as well, without having any area for any guest parking, which I think would, because there's nowhere on the street that you can park. So what are your thoughts around that? And if you did reduce, you're talking about that 21 degree slope, do you have in mind what you would be able to reduce to based on the drawing process that you've gone through up to this stage?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I had mentioned a few minutes ago, we can probably comfortably lower that to about 15 or 16 degrees, which should be a comfortable slope. And sorry, your other question with regards to, water and ice?
It was for guest parking.
Oh, guest parking, right. Yeah, so we've allowed, there's extra space up in the parking lot for guest parking. There's enough room for another 2 vehicles, I believe.
Okay. Other questions for staff or the property owner? Councillor Kroll.
Thank you, Mayor White. Again, it's driveway parking, number of cars. Gibsons Way is a difficult street for, suddenly we're potentially having, minimum of 6 and potentially 12 additional vehicles going on and off that site. to Councillor Thompson's comment, I've seen people having difficulty navigating the new driveway that is on her property, and that's one residence. People going up Gibson's Way and trying to turn left into that driveway and vehicles coming down. I think in the report, I didn't see any feedback from highways on this driveway and the potential volume of traffic that would be going on and off the road. So that to me is a concern. I'm all about densification to meet housing needs. I'm not sure that this project is actually doing that.
Sure if there was anything there for, any questions? No, not really. Okay. Councilor D'Andrade?
I know I understand that the report has been corrected, but sorry, I have to repeat because it wasn't recorded. The report has been corrected to show only 6 suites, but does it mean that the original plan was 8? And that's what happened?
Yeah, there was some confusion around how many secondary suites were going to be in there, and we've had a couple of different revisions. And the report was first reviewed in November, and the fire department had some strong concerns about the width of the access, and so the applicant has revised the drawings to make sure that they fit with the building code and fire code. And so you'll also notice that we have a recommendation, which is from the fire department about putting sprinklers in both of the buildings if it was to go ahead. There you go.
One is the question, because the new zone proposed it's applicable just for buildings, just for lots 1,000 square meters over, and this lot is 929. So we are suggesting a zone that doesn't even exist technically. So my understanding.
That is not, I didn't see that in the report.
It's on the zoning.
Okay. But the new zone piece, I'm not
Yeah, so
really
we might have
understanding.
to, I'm gonna double check, but we might have to put a site-specific condition on the zone, but I'm gonna check to see. Yeah, so we'll have to add that to the zone, and we'll have to add like a site-specific condition that says that this particular lot will be able to have a lower lot area.
Right, but that'd be down the road. That's not a decision we're making today. Or no, yeah. Councilor Lumley.
I guess, Mr. Mayor, this comes back to all the spot zoning drives me crazy. So, I mean, I don't know. It just hearing that kind of makes me go, oh, no. It's like, I mean, all the spot zoning just drives me nuts. It's like, all I can think about is like, can we please do something about the OCP and the zoning bylaws instead of just ad hocly spot zoning around town? It does. I just wanted to tell you, it drives me crazy.
We are, but it takes time. Hasn't happened overnight. Councilor Thompson, did I see your hand up a moment ago? No. Okay, Councilor D'Andrade.
So, Mayor, I think it's the first time in my experience after 4 years and a half that I'm looking at a zoning without discussing the building. So I particularly don't understand this process. I find it even uncomfortable because depending on the building shape, I mean, I think we can approve or not. And since this is a spot zoning, one more reason, because if we are talking about the whole area and a bigger plan for how we want to develop the series of lots, but no, it's one particular, and we're not even, council may approve this without even discussing the form and character, which doesn't.
No. This is, I'm sorry to interrupt
Okay.
you, but as I mentioned at the beginning, this is just a really preliminary move. We're not even looking at first reading yet. I mean, I'll look to staff to maybe explain this a little more. This is not, and I think, I heard it from a member of the public just reading this language, that it seemed like we were already approving this, but that's far from the case here. This is not even first reading,
So this staff report is looking at the zoning amendment. So we're looking specifically at land use, whether or not you would consider this property allowing 2 duplexes on the property. Now, the staff report, the Local Government Act was updated in November 2021. And it says that for any zoning amendment that's consistent with the OCP, you can waive a public hearing. And in order to do that, then a resolution has to be considered or moved by council. And then we, as staff, would have to notify the residents within 100 meters of the date when council will consider first reading. And at that point, council can consider first, second, and third reading of that bylaw. So the bylaw would come in front of you at that point, and that's when you're deciding to go ahead with the bylaw. So right now, this is the first step. Do you think, would you like to hold a public hearing or not? And then we've got the other recommendations about the community amenity contribution. And also whether or not to have a condition when you come to first reading that there would be a covenant registered to make sure that there's sprinklers in the building.
So, yeah, I've got some analysis of that too, of what the government did, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add to what Katie said, this decision is on the land use decision, so it's a rezoning, and the rezoning would allow 2 duplexes. So the discussion on form and character would come after this is further along in the process, because council might look at this and go, we don't want 2 duplexes on that property, and that would end that process right there. But at the same time, if you think you'd be leaning towards supporting 2 duplexes and you want to see this move along, you could also provide some input on what you like or what you don't like about the form and character and give the applicant a heads up about that for the future form and character permit. The development permit is required for building permit, so it has to come back to council for that decision anyway.
Okay, yeah, I just have a couple comments too on process. One is that one of the things that many people dislike about public hearings is it comes too late in the process. And I mean, I see this providing notifications of people prior to first reading as being an improvement to that. We can actually get input from people prior to first reading. Secondly, I know well that the provincial government's intention was not to kind of bog down process at all, but was to support official community plans and say that local governments, like in this case, don't need to go through the public hearing process when something complies to the OCP, because there have been complaints for years, if not decades, about just the how restrictive that language was. So the government tried to improve that 2 years ago. I'm not sure they succeeded, which I've shared with the Ministry of Housing, because it's just created this need for I mean, there used to be a need for a motion to waive a public hearing. Now it's just basically the same thing still. It's now there's this whole process set off to do this before we even see first reading. So that's the main reason we're seeing it. And I think maybe there were some mistakes made in the way that was implemented at the provincial level, and I know they're looking at it because I've brought it up with them. So that's one of the reasons we're looking at this prior to even first reading right now. Councillor Lumley.
So I asked this question before, and when this similar situation came up on Davis Road, why, like you can see in the report and you can see on the map in front of you on your desk, why wouldn't we just rezone the entire area? And if we have to bring one property, if it's 929, and why wouldn't we lower? Like, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with like increasing the square area that can be built on a lower space, just by simply saying, okay, it's gonna be fine to build it that way. It was calculated for a reason. I wasn't there during the calculation, but, so that was my one thing. Why not bring that area that he's building down to meet 929? There must be some way of figuring that out. I think that a lot of times the way the zoning works, it gets caught up on specific numbers instead of using ratios. But and then back to my original theory, is like this whole area that's zoned this, why don't we just rezone it all? So everybody can build like 2 duplexes or whatever, or have that amount of living area on each person's lot, you know? And they can only have so much living area because it has to match the square footage of the lot and what we decide to be the maximum living space on each one of those lots. I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't do that. What if 570 goes, wow, that guy just built 2 duplexes. I'd like to do that. So then you're gonna do another rezoning for that lot? Why don't we just rezone the whole area? I mean, I don't know. I mean,
That's a great question, and I'll just say, yeah, I'll look to staff to answer it, but I'll just say, like, to me, this is a sensible area for more density. So that's,
I think that's a great idea. But what we would need is council direction to do that. So right now we're responding to a single development application. So if you want us to look at rezoning the entire area, and we'd need some boundaries around that. Are you looking at all the R3 zoning? I'm assuming that, but we could look, that's something we could do. We could bring forward a zoning amendment to rezone a specific area. We could, that's going to be part of the OCP conversation when we do the OCP as well. So if you want to direct us to do that in advance, we can review that.
Mr. Lumley?
yeah, through the mayor again, and my second part of that was that instead of rezoning the 929, why wouldn't we just have the developers fit within whatever the zoning is, and just say, well, you're gonna have to come back with less mass. Maybe it takes a bit of height off it or something. Maybe it reduces it by 1 floor. It meets your restrictions. You're not, the height, the view corridors are met. I don't know, I mean, it just seems like we're changing everything for every development, sorry.
That can still be done, I imagine, in this process. And it kind of, to me, asks the question too, like, why wouldn't we be going in that approach as this process goes on, rather than the other direction of saying, well, we'll change the zone for this one lot? Go ahead.
So typically that's more of a policy decision for a number of properties, and it affects more people. So right now, because we have an application, we're responding to it. Rolling it all into one process would, like we did with Davis, the Davis Road property, is we did more public consultation on the impacts of that change. So if council wanted to review the area and do it as a block rezoning, at that point we'd have to look at how we would refund the applicant, because we would be merging it into a more long range.
Sorry, yeah, that I understand. That, no question about that. We wouldn't be able to kind of do that all suddenly today. But as far as this application goes, it's that difference between the 929 and the 1,000. Why do we go in the direction of saying, well, we're going to change our zone in order to meet the development, rather than go in the other direction of saying you need to change your development to meet our zone?
That is the intention of the rezoning application. So they've looked at the zone and said, we don't want to develop what we're allowed, so we're asking for more density.
I can, so the RCL, just to pull back a minute, the RCL zone was brought into the zoning bylaw, I think in 2007, when the Parkland development was brought into play. And the minimum lot area was kind of created at 1,000 square meters because they were new lots. Now, most of the town of Gibsons are smaller lots. They're not 1,000 square meters. They're, anywhere between like 500 to 1,000 square meters. So when we're looking at like site-specific conditions, we're looking at like older lots that they're not brand new subdivided properties. So we could either look at lowering the minimum lot area or creating like a site-specific condition. So if council feel that a site-specific condition in this zone is not a good idea, then we could look at maybe getting direction from you to lower the minimum lot area generally, so that when more properties come up and they're looking to rezone, they would fit under that minimum lot area.
Or we could do both too. I mean, I think there's a precedent for that near me on Wynn Road. For the last council said we're lowering the unit area, but we also want to look at doing that town-wide. I'm not sure that second step is done yet, but might be another OCP. Go ahead.
And I can also explain, so in the RCL zone, we also have a density. So we have a minimum and a maximum net density. So regardless of the lot area, you have to meet that minimum and that maximum net density. So they do fall in within that too.
Is this on the same track, or can we move to another one?
Sure, let's move over there. I'm just.
You're asking, I think let's try to seek clarity on this one. Or are you asking about this too?
No, I would like to make a point with the view protection.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Councillor Lumley.
One last thought, okay? It's just like the guy's going from a single family home to 6 homes. So if my concern is that if he would have had, you just go, no, I'm sorry, you have to build 5 homes. That's all I think sometimes when I hear this. It's just like, okay, let's change this so this guy can build 6 homes when he could actually build, you're still going from 1 home to 5. Like, I just don't know. That's more density, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure what.
What we would lose is a secondary suite, probably, which would be
I mean, I
a
don't
rental,
know.
hopefully.
Then would it fall within our zoning?
And I think also there is an option that, I mean, they're not necessarily going to be secondary suites, but whoever owns them could just spread out in the one unit, which I don't know if that's better, but I mean, maybe that's just me.
He's already asked to
But I'll
sprinkle
just see what if the property owner has any comments on that concern.
Yeah, I mean, it's not actually going to 6. It's technically 4 sellable units, but the idea is to add rental. I know there's a shortage of rental in everywhere, and that's what our goal was, to meet the OCP, to fall within a comfortable style build that can bring more affordable housing and rental suites to the community.
Thank you. Councillor Kroll.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor White. And this would be a question for the developer. Would you be comfortable with a covenant on those suites that they not be short-term rentals or residential guest accommodation?
Short-term as in Airbnb?
Yes.
Yes. No, of course. That's the goal or the intention with those is to provide rental housing for the community, not for vacation spots.
Okay. Any other questions? We're still in the question phase here.
Well, it's a question in a way because this is changing zoning and impacts the view protection. Because, for example, if within the current zoning, it is allowed a duplex limited to one principal building. And that would be a different barrier on the view protection. The moment you move to two duplexes, there's an implication. So I'm not against the two duplexes, but this has to be I need to understand what is the impact, and I think we have to bring the people affected to this impact. That's my concern right now.
Yeah, and they will get notifications. So that's, and I've heard, we've already received input from, preliminary input from, I think, the people who live right behind. So they're concerned about it, understandably. And they, even before we had this on our agenda, we received because there's been a lot of, the sign has been up, so I think for quite some time now, months. I mean, I think there's been awareness of this for...
Yeah, the sign went up, I believe, in February, and we had some conversations with neighbors. They were slightly worried that they were going away and they wanted to be notified when it was coming up, so they have been.
Okay. Councillor Gandretti?
Mayor, I don't mind the obviously we will notify the neighbors. I think my concern is with the view protection itself. This is something created, and I respect a lot because the moment you create the view protection, people invest on there and they pay higher price. And suddenly we are picking doing a spot zoning every time someone, and that's the part that I don't feel comfortable. So the public hearing brings more awareness of what's going on. And the moment we change the OCP and we can change the zoning as well, if the view protection, but this has to be done in a bigger scale. So I feel a little bit nervous with just this spot zone is going to be just the neighbors, and what's the decision, 50 meters or 100 meters that we will the notification?
I think the last council made it 100, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 100 now. Yeah.
It's sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it's 100 meters, and we also have to put an advert in the newspaper for 2 weeks too.
Okay.
Councillor Kroll?
I'm just commenting, sort of follow up to what Councillor Lumley was saying. I think if we are going to, put out this notice that it should possibly be expressed in the notice that there is consideration being given to rezoning the whole area, because
That'd be a different process. I don't think we can
it's a
talk about that
different
in
process,
this.
but, to Councillor Lumley's point, every time every project that comes before us practically it's a rezoning application. And, which is more laborious for staff. So at least, as with the case with Davis Road, and it was one project that brought that rezoning forward, someone wanted to add another garden suite on their property. And our reaction to it was that we put out, we're going to rezone both Davis and Poplar. So I don't see how that situation differs from this situation. We had a project on the table. We changed our approach towards it. And, yes, it engages a larger conversation, but is it ultimately in the long run going to save staff time and energy and money, with all these spot zonings?
Well, there is an option in the report to have a community dialogue. And I'm kind of, on the opposite, concerned about having a community dialogue on just one property. Like, I feel like I like those to be more big picture, but we could always pursue having a community dialogue on view protection and density in that area that might then kind of inform and lead to larger rezoning. But I think that would still need to be separate from this application because, technically, and I don't know, I wasn't there for Davis Road, but I kind of watched it, and I don't know if it happened so seamlessly and immediately that one application came in and then council, I don't know, other councilors were there, but I don't know if the application came in and then council said, oh, we're going to rezone the whole thing in one meeting, or was that? It didn't happen that way. Okay. So, it probably happened more like, let's look at this over some time in the process, have a dialogue, like that could be an option here. But, to look at this application that's in front of us, we have some recommendations. I can say that just really high level here, like if we get into, form and character, view protection, height of the building, that's kind of that can be down the road. I think at a high level, I think increasing density in this there's a lot of density right across the street. Compared to this with the right on Seaview. And then there's the comprehensive zone just a little lower that's probably going to change and have some density one property away when those property owners come to us at some point in the next few years. So I just say at a high level that the concept of having some duplexes there and some density there and smaller units and especially basement suites that could be rentals is way more appealing to me than a single-family house. And, I think that's what we're looking at here, rezoning it from a single family to more density. So I'm interested in looking at this further. Councillor DeAndrade.
Mayor, I just want to make a clarification because the current zoning allows single-family duplex. The thing is limited to one building. And actually, the proposed amendment, it's very insignificant in terms of density. It's from 0.4 to 0.43 or something, 40 to 43, whatever is the ratio. So what we are talking, I think to me, what we are talking is from one building, which is allowed, to two buildings, and there's an impact on view protection because of that, because now you're separating the buildings. And that, to me, is a bigger conversation. And I don't understand why we don't want to go through a public hearing, because it's an issue and how our community reacts to that. So that's the part that makes me nervous of just giving notification as taking, it's just a variance. It's not a variance. That would be, no, but it's type of, it's kind of a variance when you're just, okay, it's just one aspect, because depending how you see this, it's just a small aspect, but it's allowing duplexes anyways. It's already allowed, the current zoning. And it actually allows garden suite, allows other things, other buildings. I think it's a total of even 5 buildings, if the staff can correct. So I don't think the issue here is densifying. The density is very insignificant. I think here, and again, I'm not against the 2 duplexes. I'm sure you have the value increases, but it is the potential impact. And I think this has to be looked properly with the design. So now we're approving a zoning, and that's the part as well. It's not attached to the design, but depends on the location of building. There are implications, and I think this is the view protection to me is it's a serious issue.
Okay, I hear you, Councillor Kroll.
And this would be a question to you, Mayor White, to the developer. I'm sure he's probably got some sort of business plan and has has sort of roughly calculated cost per square foot for building and so on and so forth. So it's a curious question with respect to, as a prospective buyer, and I was interested in buying one of the units closest to Gibsons Way, what I would be looking at to buy into this project. If I might
I guess it
inquire.
depends on when it comes online, but what about it? What if it were to come online today, let's say? Oh, sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I can tell you, as it stands today, if you were to build a single building, a duplex with garden suites and rentals, it's unaffordable for anybody looking to buy it. It basically your costs are way over what the market sells for today. But as far as the proposal, you're looking at probably about a $950 a square foot sale price for each unit, which is much more attainable. As it is today, you're looking at $1,800 if it's divided into two parcels as today. So it's quite a dramatic difference. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It gives me a ballpark, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And we have recommendations. We have some options too. And I think we may be talking about some things that would come along, conversations that would come along further. Today, we've been having some conversations that might come along further in the process. But in the meantime, we need to look at this this proposal to move it forward in one way or the other. Yeah, Councillor Lumley.
Would it continue to move forward? Because I'm kind of in the same boat as Councillor DeAndretti. I mean, and Councillor Kroll, I'm for densification. I have no problem with putting two duplexes on this lot. I mean, obviously, I think we're all aware of the costs of everything these days, and building is one of them. Yeah, so could we notify like the neighbors? Could you move that? I mean, the community mentioned contribution, I guess, I don't know. That could come later anyway. It really doesn't matter, right? And the sprinklers, that's just a fire department requirement, but would it be smart just to, I'm not comfortable with the first one, but I would move the second one. I'd move that staff authorized to provide notifications first reading.
Okay, that's seconded.
But could I also, I guess we're in discussion now, sorry. I would also I'd like to start the ball rolling on the entire rezoning of that district as well. It doesn't have to be tied to this development, I'm not saying that. And I don't want to overpower staff with
I can accept that
something, but-
motion today in the committee of the whole, but I don't think we want to package it in the same one. We want to just deal with this development.
Okay, well, that's been seconded, so.
We don't usually provide, I mean, I'm a bit confused about the second part without the first part, because that's not the usual process. This is I guess, the Bill 26 provincially mandated process that was like you do these things together. You do not have you have a motion saying we're not having a public hearing and we're doing notifications of first reading instead. So to do.
Are we going to do public engagement at all or not?
Well, and a public hearing, or? I mean, because that's an option too. Yeah, absolutely. But we do have a motion on the table about that we provide notifications of first reading in accordance with section 467, and I think it probably wouldn't be, I don't know if that would be in accordance. Councillor Lumley?
Just as another comment, irrespective of what the provincial government's put forward, you know, and I know, and everybody knows, the blowback's going to be like, we don't want to hear from the public, you know, about approving anything. So that's my fear would be, that would be my fear with this, but that's okay. I mean, I'd rather have some sort of public consultation, but it doesn't have to be a public hearing.
Well, it'd be way better, but yeah, I'm just, I saw staff wanted to speak to the, but maybe I may have already summarized the concerns. Yeah.
I'll just add one more thing. Section 467 of the local government is specific to not holding a public hearing.
Yeah.
So that would be the intention of the notice, to let residents know that a public hearing is not held, and the decision of first reading would be at a specific date.
So I think I'm going to say this motion's not in order, if that's okay with everyone. Because it doesn't, just doing one of those two things doesn't actually comply with section 467. But the concept of having I mean, that's in the options. Having I thought it was a community dialogue optional it's in option 1, and then it says optional add-on, that we have a community dialogue prior to first reading of the bylaw. Councillor DeAndrade.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm trying to understand what is the benefit. I mean, in terms of preparation, I find actually the community dialogue is even more, because you have to rent a place. I don't understand what's the resistance with the public here with an issue that we know, like, again, view protection is a big issue for our community. So I don't understand why you're trying to escape from public hearing and do in terms of, we have to put.
If you're speaking to me, I totally support the provinces and most municipalities across BC have been lobbying for years to have a smoother process and not have so many public hearings. And I don't, you know, I've said this publicly before, I think public hearings are garbage. I really don't. I think they're really restrictive processes. They're one way, they're confrontational, they're really not a good way to get community input. I think our last public hearing, where most of the input we got was written, was actually pretty good. And we really encourage written input. And having, but I mean, there are academics right now. There are the WASC Center and SFU has a whole program talking about which I've participated in, talking about how public hearings are not meeting our community needs, and they're often pitting people against each other. And we need to find a better way to do things. And that's why as a council, we've been talking about these community dialogues and trying to move away from public hearings. So I see Councillor Kroll had his hand up.
Thank you, Mayor White. You know, I understand the directive that's coming down from the province with trying to make things more seamless. What I do have tremendous difficulty is our commitment to the community for transparency and including them in our decision-making. So, you know, whether we send out notices to the 100-meter radius of that project, which probably puts two of us on council in an awkward position.
Should be 50.
You know, it's, but I think it's really important with, you know, what we've discussed in public today about a broader vision for rezoning of the whole area, that there needs to be public engagement. And I'm open to suggestion, but, you know, a community dialogue, how does it differ from a public hearing?
Okay, so the biggest thing is it would become, that the option that's presented to us, it would come before first reading. I mean, one of the reasons why so many people complain about public hearings is it's so far down the road. It's like, I mean, people feel like that not only are they only like looking at the very final proposal and there's no room for change, but a lot of people have the perception that council's already made their minds up too. And I mean, we hear that all the time. We get it in our input saying, well, you've already made up your mind. And it's just like, that only compounds a divisive nature that these things are kind of set up to achieve. That's why we need to change them. That's why I'm not excited about going, yeah, let's have a public hearing every time we have a development. Councillor DeAndrade?
So Mayor, in this particular case, if we do a public dialogue, it's going to be specific to the development or the whole area? I think that's the part that we have to sort out. Because again, in the message to the community, we don't want to create confusion. If you're talking about this specific project, I almost prefer the public hearing because it's clear. You're putting there and say, this is a zoning for this. And the public dialogue could be the overall.
It'd be up to council. Councillor Lumley?
Okay, but do you think about it this way? If you have a public dialogue about rezoning or a larger issue, you have an example right in your hand that you can use in that dialogue. And the great thing about a dialogue is that you get to talk to people. I talked to several people when we did the Glassford Road and all, like, you don't have to sit there like an idiot and not say a word when people are like talking to you or asking you questions or going, hey, what about this? I don't like this. And you sit in a public hearing and you hear so much misinformation and you can't say anything. So I way prefer a dialogue, but I mean, we could just roll along with this. Somebody could move I guess that motion's dead. You could just move the first two and roll into first reading, and then you can say your piece then, or you could be for or against it. I mean, I would just like to see the thing. I mean, I guess he could sit there too, right? The guy could sit there, laying in the weeds until we have a public dialogue. I don't know how long that would take, but because I think you're right. The view protection, it's a big issue in this, and you wouldn't get this guy too far down the road that we spoke about before, and then you get to the first or second reading, you go, yeah, take your ball and go home. This way, like, he'll have a better understanding, and so will we. So I don't know. It's a thought.
Councillor Thompson?
Yeah, I completely agree, and it gives our community members a good idea of we're listening to the feedback first before we're making a move. We're talking about looking at a bigger picture area. And we're talking about view allowance. It's a big topic that I think this is a great example. I agree to take it forward to look at the bigger picture discussion that needs to happen in that area. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to move things forward though. I mean, we could have it as general as, I mean, what kind of area are we? How do we delineate this area? I would question. I mean, it's not exactly. We can't say the harbor area because that's massive.
What's its own zone? It's on your report.
Okay.
It's that area. It's not specific zoning. It's all this area there. Multiple lots. I'm sure it spreads. It might all go
All up to Gibsons Way, all the way up Gibsons Way. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we could say the lower Gibsons Way area, and staff would know what we're talking about. Like they see it there. Yeah. So, sorry, staff.
I was going to suggest if council wants to look into this, you could ask for a staff report to bring back some options and to look at specific areas to allow duplex or RCL zoning. And then we would look at the OCP and look at lot sizes and do a bit more analysis on where it would work.
Okay. I'm just trying to come up with something here, but can you have something, Councillor Ann?
Yeah, just a clarification, because I think my concern is, I love the idea before even we move forward that we have the feedback, but on the report, would we be discussing view protection? I just want to be clear.
I've got that in my wording here. Would this touch, I mean, I want to add something here too, which is a can of worms, but I think we need, I mean, it touches on view protection too, and Councillor D'Andrade's concerns, but there's that whole consortium of lots right beside this, right, that was bought. And I mean, and then that's just, they kind of surround Stonehurst. And there's concerns about access in there. I mean, I feel like that whole area is something that needs to be looked at as well. And this is just like a property away, so. It is a different zone though, yeah. Well, I'm just raising that anyway, but, I mean, maybe that's something that
Different land use as well,
touches on this, yeah.
right?
Yeah. Director?
Thank you. Yeah, that is a different land use designation and zoning. But I just wanted to let council know that we're currently working on an application for the Housing Accelerator Fund. And that fund is going, we haven't brought anything to council yet because we're still working on it, but we're also looking at where we can put in some gentle density and where we can add more significant density in Gibsons. And so through that process, we're hoping to get some funding over the next 4 years to do some of this work as well. So it is on the radar. It is on our radar. So passing a resolution would help support that work. But I'm not sure how quickly we could get to it because we're looking at a bunch of different density options in Gibsons. So just wanted to share that.
Councillor Lumley?
Do you want to move that?
Well, is it a public dialogue or staff report now? Do we do, or both? Both, yeah.
Both.
Okay. So wording I have here to possibly put forward is that council request a staff report and hold a public dialogue on view protection, zoning, and housing in the lower Gibsons Way area. Before anyone seconds it, we may change it. I didn't want to get that first. Does anyone have any? Councillor Kroll, I see there's something that tweaks you. Density?
Just add density.
Yeah.
Okay, so that council request a staff report and hold a public dialogue on view protection, zoning, density, and housing in the lower Gibsons Way area. Councillor Kroll, is there still something you're concerned about?
I'm just wondering where it leaves this current project.
We haven't made a decision on it. I think that's what the,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's,
Could I move the first two recommendations and that, put that in there?
yep,
Could we, can I add prior to first reading on that?
prior to first reading.
Or prior to
Okay.
second reading? What would first reading?
Yeah, prior to first.
So, and that, and then that motion that you read and Rebecca wrote down, and then, so I'd move the first two and that,
Okay,
okay?
okay, I've got that. Is that clear for staff?
No, I'm not quite following you either.
Okay, so first is,
No public hearing.
Let's proceed without a public hearing.
provide notifications, first reading of the bylaw,
And that,
And then,
and that prior to first reading, would it still be council request? Anyway, I mean, that still works. Yeah, council request a staff report and hold a public dialogue on view protection, zoning, density, and housing in the Lower Gibsons Way area. Yeah, I said that.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, because in Councillor Lumley's thing, he's saying, and that staff be authorized to provide notification of the first reading. And we're saying that we want the notifications to go out and the community dialogue prior to first reading.
Staff?
I think my question through you, Mr. Mayor, is that normally we would, when we give the notification, we would be saying when that first reading would happen, we'd be giving a date for the first reading. So with there being now a staff report and a dialogue session prior to first reading, setting that date might be a little more complicated. So I'm just looking to you for some direction on that.
I don't think the motions have to happen in order of the way we're proposing them here. The last part could happen before the second part. Does that work? Yeah, Director? Yeah.
Just a point of clarification, are you wanting the staff report on the view protection, zoning, density, and housing in Lower Gibsons area before first reading, or was that just another project separately?
That's before first reading. That's what, I mean,
So the implication of this is first reading won't happen, this is gonna be delayed for months, potentially a year or so.
I was good with just the public hearing, but then the staff report was suggested too, so, I mean, the public dialogue, yeah. Councillor Lumley?
Yeah, no, I think the most important part of this is the dialogue. So, and like, no disrespect, I have no clue how to be a planner. I'm an idiot. But I think even if you could do a staff report, it's almost everything that's in here already, because I think people are going to want to know the impact of the zoning, like the change. That's all they're going to want to know. I don't think we have to go too deep into like zoning and because it's this, we're talking about a specific area here.
Okay.
So anyway.
Yeah, what if we, like, I hear there's a vision, a staff vision for kind of a more ambitious staff report that might come out of the grant. There's too many to, that will take months to do. But maybe the staff report of this motion would just be kind of more of a summary of this, but adding some information on view protection, which would help inform the dialogue. Is that possible to do I think that's what I'm hearing from Councillor Lumley.
Yes.
It would be helpful if we could narrow that geographical area to.
Do they have a name for that area?
I can't read that. I'm just thinking about staff capacity and timing, so that to not delay this project too much, unless delaying the project is not a concern of
go ahead.
council.
I understand.
Sorry, I'm just scrolling through the report to try and get that map. So Adonidus Lane, Gibsons Way,
North Fletcher.
Fletcher. So it would just be that little square, which would be a quick
Rectangle.
analysis.
Square or rectangle? I see a rectangle.
rectangle.
Oh, okay, no,
Sorry.
just, okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, if the Director of Planning through you could please repeat the area boundaries?
Okay, it's not going to be part of the
It's not
motion,
gonna
I
be
don't
part
think.
of- oh, it's
I mean, I'm just hearing that's what, when we say Lower Gibsons Way, that's what your definition's going to be. Is that all if that's all understood by everyone here, that's,
Mayor,
unless we want it in the motion.
I would prefer specific because people get, when you hear Lower Gibsons, now you're including the harbor. So just to avoid, because people read quickly, even when I heard I'm kind of harbor. So let's specify between, we can say Lower Gibsons Way, between Yeah.
She just said it.
Okay. Let's take a 1 minute break. 2 minute break. You can break.
Professional. Always comes ahead of feeling good.
That look good for you.
I want to repeat it back to make sure you're on it. So my understanding of the motion is a zoning amendment bylaw 1065 could proceed with a public hearing.
Well,
And that staff be authorized to provide notifications of the first reading to our section 467 government. And that now he's got, and the council request, I'd like to, I'd like to, hoping he'll let me reword it, that staff be directed to provide a staff.
place has to be 4 points, that's the measurement.
Like you've got high water level,
Yeah.
zero, and so they, yes.
Plus.
So plus that, yeah. So either they build it higher up on the slope or they have to build it up.
Raise it, yeah, cause that's what that guy did down by,
Davis Bay.
Just
It is mainly doing it right now.
Oh, are they?
Yeah,
see the cliff by the ferry?
yeah,
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 it's like on stilts.
yeah,
It was just like, hey, that's a good idea.
yeah, yeah.
The house in Davis Bay, they put blocks everywhere on the lot. Foundation, and then so the house, they added, probably 2 meters or
There's a few houses actually. That's a little greenhouse with a nice leaded windows, you know? So that's like a cute little house, but it looks like it's like down, like after Boulevard, it's like down.
something. Davis Bay?
Yeah,
Oh, I know.
it's like my favorite house there, so. But it looks pretty serious. I'm sure the water comes over the road.
There's a video of it.
Is there?
First reading on 2006.
That'd be better? Yeah, that clears it for me. Yeah, you have to go out.
I mean, all the.
Same brands.
Pull it up on my phone. We got it. I think she got it.
Is there something wrong with it? It was the song last time and you said you wouldn't do anything. Okay, so I was just curious if there's a specific microphone.
Okay. Do we have,
She's
oh, we
sending
don't.
it to me. We just worked on it together and she's gonna email it to me.
Okay.
Just be on this way. Yeah.
We should have as well as about Seaside Village, because that's another problem that's gonna hit. And at least there's lot, which is right on top of Heritage. Area. I don't know, do you want to include it?
Oh, this isn't the one I was.
That's too much.
Yeah, it'll, I mean, we need,
Here it
okay,
is.
but,
Found it. I got it. I get it.
okay,
Yes.
Counselor Kroll? Okay.
He's been working on drafting as well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to read the motion and make sure I got it correct. So I'll give the floor over to council to let me know if I've made any errors or through you. This is the motion as I have it right now. The zoning amendment bylaw 1065-70, 2023 proceed without a public hearing. And that staff be authorized to provide notifications of the first reading of the bylaw in accordance with section 467 of the Local Government Act. and that prior to first reading, a public dialogue session be held on view protection, zoning, density, and housing in the Lower Gibsons area, and that prior to first reading, a staff report be provided to council on view protection, zoning, density, and housing in the area south of Adonatus Lane between North Fletcher Road and Gibsons Way.
It's north of Adonatus Lane.
North of Adonatus Lane, okay. Is it south? Uh-oh.
Okay, we've got that correct?
I don't know, let me know.
Yeah.
It's south?
Is there a mover for that? Okay,
Well, that's what this map says. If I look at the north, south, east, west.
It's north of Adonatus.
I
There's
think-
Adonatus Lane, and we're talking about everything north of it.
And there's
no, I think they're talking about everything south of it. It's just a small
Oh,
area.
just that small area, okay.
That's why Adonis Lane is even used, right? It's not, yeah.
So it's just that, okay, it's just that one.
Oh, I know, but they say they don't have enough time.
Yeah.
Oh, no, just this?
Adonis Lane is,
This?
yes, south, you're right. Because you're just doing that little area, right? Okay.
You want to be on this one.
It's probably a great place to start.
Get the
comments. Yeah.
Oh,
that's just.
Yeah, then we can just extrapolate it to the north after it's over.
Yeah. Okay, it's a very small.
Yeah,
Alright.
okay, sure, whatever. We can, sure, yeah, moved, seconded. Discussion on the motion? After we've done it, we've had lots of pre-discussion. All those in favor? The motion carries. And Councillor Lumley needs to leave for a family commitment. And next we have 4.3, which is 561 Marine Crescent flood exemption. And this again, we can go straight to council. We've got a report. I know councillors have been carefully reading this report as well. And we have a recommendation. Are there questions or for staff on this item? It's any introduction? Yeah, then.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't need to introduce it further in the report, except to say that we do have the applicants also available on this
Okay.
application for questions.
Okay.
Sorry, and I did receive an emailed question from a counselor before the meeting and responded. That was sent to all.
I've had no time to read my emails, so go ahead, like, if you want to talk, yeah, if we want to go through.
I'll leave it to be asked if it's
Okay.
still needed. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor DeAndrade?
Thank you, Mayor. One of my concerns was, obviously, this is on the OCP, but it's also on the zoning, in our zoning, about the 15 meters floodplain. And so, obviously, the reason this was done was, I believe, was scientific based to protect short terms and long terms. And again, it's almost a spot zoning. Every development comes forward and asks for 7.5. And even though we get the report from the geoengineer, I don't feel comfortable because it might not be within our long-term planning. And so that staff responded some of my questions, but I feel that I feel I still don't have all the information to say, oh, that's okay, 7.5, because this is from the point of view of of liability specific to the owner, the way I see, right? And I know it won't have, liability to the town, and the town will be protected. But I don't see the connection with our long-term plan. And then my concern is, if we say yes to the 7.5, what happens when other houses wants to do the same, other developments? So to me, it's more important is going back to the conversation. Why don't we amend the OCP and understand where did this 15 meters came? And if it's safe 7.5, then I rest my case. I'm here because I feel responsible in saying yes to something that I don't see any connection. And
Okay, can we save the rest? Because
Yes.
we should probably have a discussion. And I'm interested in what staff has to say about that too.
Thank you. Yeah, in response to the concern about where did this 15-meter setback come from, that's provided in section 16 of the OC, 16.2 of the OCP. And that was it was a townwide study that was done to identify a buffer around geotechnical hazards around streams, marine shore, for example. And in the description of that area where the hazard areas are outlined, it says that the hazard area designations should not be interpreted as prohibitions on all development activity, but as an indication of areas where professional geotechnical assessment and specific development standards are required. So that's furthered in the section on flood protection, where it says that it provides the 15-meter setback and then follows that a geotechnical report is required if the lot is located on land designated as floodplain under subsection 1. So the intention is to push that requirement of a site-specific report if you're falling in that area designated, known to have a flood hazard. So the applicants have provided that geotechnical report that provides a measure of safety, provided they follow the conditions in the report. And that has been the precedent currently of the town, is to rely on that geo report. We don't have currently any other long-range plans that staff identified that would be impacted by allowing the flood exemption. And we have actually authorized prior flood exemptions to 7.5 meters and other distances for specific properties.
So that has been done, yeah. And I'll go to the CAO too, but I just wanted to comment too. I think the staff report in itself actually lays out a really rational way of approaching these specific sites specifically. So it's not like I'm not really concerned about it just setting a blanket precedent saying, oh, 7.5, now it's 7.5, because the report actually has a lot of, including mention of it's a geotechnical report, right? Yeah, which is here. That's all kind of the rationales already laid out there of why we would grant it for some places but not others. I have an additional concern too, but I know the CAO wants to, or a question, comment on this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor,
Question.
the questions around from Councilor Andrade, and I want us to find an explanation that you can live with and that it makes sense. And when I look at this, when we look at this and we converse, what we're doing here is it's about the hazard. It's not about the environment. Like that thing could be just a solid rock. All this is saying is these areas are have some hazards that have been identified, and they require somebody property by property to assess. You only can get this if you do the work. Otherwise, it is a prohibition in that sense. But it's specific to the hazard on that site. Now, one question that has been around, how does that affect the town's plans and the protection of the town? It doesn't change the land itself. It's just talking about a building that's sitting on a piece of private property, and we're saying, yeah, you can build there if an engineer says you can build there, and you're taking the responsibility for building there if something happens to your building. I don't see how that puts any of the town's infrastructure. This is where we would comment on, is if their works were impeding something we were doing or that we were responsible to manage. We're not seeing that. This is entirely within a piece of private property, they will always be allowed. All we're regulating is that that house is not likely to fall down because an engineer has certified that he can build on there in those terms. So if anything, I feel like we've actually done our homework by insisting that they get that certified by a proper engineer. And that's what we verify. It is safe to build. So it doesn't come at an expense of putting any of the community's assets at risk. So that, I know it sort of leaves, that's pretty much all I can add it there. I don't know if you have anything more specific there, but maybe I'm just not understanding something.
I guess what I'm confused about, and I haven't had to deal with many of these applications, but floodplain exemption too, but on like the whole concept in the OCP that was quoted here about floodplain is like, does elevation matter at all when we're talking about that? Like, I didn't see that. Okay.
Through you, Mayor. There's the 15-meter flood setback. There's also a very unrestrictive requirement of, there's actually two different, in the zoning bylaw, we have 1.5 meters elevation above sea level. And in the OCP, it suggests 2.5, but in the geotechnical report, the report actually would require, I think it was about 4.5 meters. So we already have the report that supersedes what's required in our bylaws. So that'll be part of our bylaw amendments coming up.
Yeah, that aspect makes a lot more sense to me than the 15-meter floodplain, only looking at that alone. Now, I think I saw Councillor Kroll first. For a while.
Thank you, Mayor White. This would be, I guess, a question for staff through you, Mayor White. The sewer line goes right to the edge of the Chuckwell Band property. With what we're envisioning doing with upgrades to the property, is that going to sort of impact on this potential development?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Our sewer line goes beyond this property. I believe it goes 2 more properties before it ends at the boundary of the Chuckwell First Nations property. So I'm just wondering, with what we're looking at doing potentially in the upgrades to our sewer line, is that potentially going to conflict with anything that's developers looking at doing?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the proposed, any changes to the sanitary main along the foreshore in this part of town would be, at this point, conditional to receipt of the grant funding for the foreshore improvements. The foreshore improvements, the extent of that improvement ends at Arbor's Beach. So it does not extend as far north as this property. At this point in time, there is no specific plan to address the full extent of the foreshore sanitary main.
Through you, Mayor White, just to follow up to that, back when the Squamish Nation was looking at redeveloping their property with Wakefield Developments, the town had, I think, a verbal agreement or a potential agreement in place that we would provide access to the town's sewage. So I'm just wondering where that agreement with the First Nations stands currently, because they have expressed some interest as potentially redeveloping the Chuckwell site again, and how this, again, could impact if we were to have to upgrade that service.
CAO?
Yeah, just for the sake of Trevor's time here with us, we don't have an agreement, through you, Mr. Mayor, we don't have an agreement. In fact, we never entered into an agreement. We had discussions with the nation about, in the future development, how that could be serviced. And they expressed an interest in accessing the town's sewer main. But the location doesn't necessarily, we didn't get into whether what Trevor's talking about would continue the sewer line on the sea line, on the seawall, and expand the seawall, or put her up on the road and then connect where it comes down from Upper Gibsons. With all the conversations, probably a more likely scenario considering where the creek is and so on. So I don't see us going down that road, no pun intended. So that was the discussion, was if we need, could we connect to the town? And the answer, I remember at the time, in fact, the current upgrade to the Prowse Road lift station was first conceived by working with the nation or sort of envisioning if they were to come in. So when that does happen, since they have announced that they intend to develop that site, I think we'll be having a conversation around how best to service that, and more likely to be on Marine Drive than to be on the ocean side. But otherwise, we don't have any obligations or any type of agreement that would, that we would see impacting this request to vary the setback for the hazard area.
If I may add to that as well, the servicing of the property as it is from the foreshore. That would be nothing, I don't think, would change about how the lot is serviced, regardless of whether the setback is reduced or not. The lot was still, if it were to be built, it would be serviced from the sanitary main on the foreshore.
Andretti?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a few questions. One regards the report from KWL 2017 that they talk about a 5.9. It's actually, I'm just wondering, and this should be because they are our gurus, our technical advisors. It's on page 14 of the report. Actually, page 14 on the. So they talk a phased approach to foreshore protection. For the purpose of this conceptual design study, we have taken the approach to consider the ultimate design for 2100, then develop a short-term solution, FCL of 5.9 elevation. So that's, and I remember because we had the 528 not too long ago, and I remember this was one of the concerns I had.
If I may, and I'll feel free to pass it to the CAO to step in for some of the background context. Without being a part of that project and working with KWL as they establish that, understanding the way that flood construction levels are established, I could only assume that their methodology was to take a high-level approach if they were establishing a flood construction level for the entire town, and it would have been inherently conservative to try to address the full extent of town. There's a number of variables that go into calculating a flood construction level, and certainly some of those are the angle of approach to the property of the foreshore and the predominant wind direction as well, of what direction the property is facing, because the wave run-up and the fetch are two of the largest variables that can contribute to the amount of water the elevation that the water can rise in a storm event. So I think that the precedent of superseding a high-level flood construction level for a, say, municipal-wide level through a site-specific engineering study is quite commonplace. And the site-specific engineering study would have been looking at the specific parameters of that lot, i.e. the direction it's facing, how much, wave run-up length there is, so say where there's a barrier, if the bluff is blocking some of the wind direction. All of those come into effect on a specific lot that wouldn't be captured by the generic 5.9 meters that KWL would have established.
Oh, okay. I have another question.
Councilor D'Andretti?
Thank you. I think when I asked a question regarding contact with the Squamish Nation, I fully understand that it doesn't impact the Gibsons Creeking relationship to provincial legislation. But I was talking more like they value this area and the town is in partnership in restoring the whole creek. And then they have the whole development planned. I know it's a long term. Well, it's not on the plan. They don't have a plan right now, but they have the idea of developing this area because it has been discussed, even the sewage. So that's it. I was more like thinking in terms of reconciliation if they were approached, because this is a development right basically beside their lands. And that was where I was, I have some concern that we are not really, we consult them with other developments, actually developed like on the higher, the one that we were talking about before this one, but this one is right beside in the foreshore. So that's my concern, that they didn't get any referral.
Mr. Kroll?
My understanding is it was sent out for referral. They haven't commented.
Oh, I don't know.
Which is common, and they're pretty open with us, saying sometimes we don't, something that's not a big deal, we often won't comment.
Through you, Mayor, I can clarify. This application was not sent to the Squamish Nation, and there's a few things that go into deciding what we refer and what we don't. Coming out of, we don't refer all applications because in our conversations with the nation, recently they've expressed their overload. They get referrals from a lot of municipalities. They have a large territory. So we tend to look at what the impacts of this particular decision might be, because this decision would be a request that would allow the building to be moved. It's allowing the building to move further from their property is one consideration. And also that we're looking at flood risk. So this is an application to do with approving whether we think it's safe. And those are two of the decisions. However, if council feels that the Squamish Nation would be specifically impacted by this decision, then we could refer it.
Yeah, I don't really see it, just in my conversations with anybody there, that they would be concerned about this.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I would say, if anything, we're doing more referrals to the nation, and they're much more engaged, and Trevor and Michelle in particular can speak to how often do we talk, and I think my senses would have heard from them by now if this was a bigger concern. It's just not it's also not a particular site that has any sort of known identified area of concern that for the nation anyway. So that's as much as we've done there.
Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor White. In light of the explanations that staff have been able to give with respect to the setback and the geotechnic override to explain the reason for the variance, I will move the recommendations on that staff have provided, that a flood exemption FL 2023-2 be authorized, reducing the required setback in part 14.11, bracket 2, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it. Seconded by Councillor Thompson. Discussion of the motion. Go ahead.
I just want to follow up to my question, because
We're on the motion right now. We're discussing the motion.
Well, but
I won't close. You can ask a question after the motion.
Okay, so, I have another question with regards to the motion, which is regards zoning, because one of the planner discussed that the OCP talks about that the 50 meters is something, it's just a basis, but why does the zoning bylaw, it's specific to the 50 meters, it doesn't talk about that. So based on whatever is in the OCP, a zoning bylaw was created that just says it must. And that's the part that I think is very conflictive.
Well,
because
that's something that needs to be corrected at some point, I guess, then. Councillor Kroll? Well, let's stick to the motion.
To my understanding, and it's why I made the motion, is that staff, to my mind, said we have a guide of this which can be overridden by a geotechnic report specific to the site. So that's why I moved the motion, because to me, it's been explained why we have something at this level, but it's appropriate to have it at that level if you've got a geotech report to substantiate the reasoning behind that move. So,
Counselor Thompson?
Agreed. That's why I seconded the motion. I agree with what you're saying as well.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion carries. So that's a recommendation that will,
May I ask
you
a
want one
question?
more question about this item? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yes, I would like to understand the rationale, why the previous development that was in Upper Gibbs, well, kind of, high, not even in the water, it's referred to the nation, and this one was not significant enough. I don't understand the rationale.
Through the mayor,
Yeah.
are you talking about 528 Marine Drive?
Well, I mean, this one isn't even a rezoning. This one's
No, the previous one, the ones that we were just dealing.
earlier today, yeah. I mean, I think this one isn't even a rezoning, I think would be the answer. This is just somebody looking to build a house.
I know,
That's
but
basically correct, right? Yeah.
why a rezoning would have implications on the Squamish Nation?
It's a good question. Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, it's just, we have to draw the line somewhere because, I mean, they've been pretty consistent. I've heard it from them as well with the political conversations that they only have so much time for all of the referrals they get from all the municipalities and local governments that are in their territory. So I think the line here has been drawn, not every house that's getting built necessarily goes for a referral, but we don't do referrals for anybody for that reason, right? I mean, VCH or Modi, we don't ask for referrals to for a house being built.
Yeah, once it's at building permit stage, we don't do referrals to external agencies except for the fire
Rezoning
department.
is kind of the line, I think, for.
Yeah, when it's a rezoning, there's legislative process for public consultation, so there's more referrals that go out. This is purely a council one-time decision on a flood exemption, so we don't typically refer flood exemptions. And council can always ask for it to be referred before a decision is made, if it's important.
Just trying to understand the rationale. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we amend the zoning with whatever information to avoid this confusion. Because you read the OCP, yeah, there's a line that specifies that, but then the zoning doesn't. So in a way, I'm looking at the zoning. I think it's important not to have this dubious.
We'll just add that to the list.
Yes.
How long is that list now? Updating the zoning bylaw.
No, this specific item
Oh, I
in the
know, but
zoning bylaw.
I've been watching these motions come for 10 years. Sorry.
I didn't catch that motion.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what it was.
There was no motion.
There was no motion?
Well,
You
There-
can't pass a motion, right?
no, I
No,
didn't.
no,
I'm
no.
just
She's
proposing a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Is there some staff advice on this, or?
Okay, I'll just say the 15-meter distance in the zoning bylaw is identifying the floodplain. And so that's what is being exempted here in this decision. But the development permit area, we've got a 30-meter assessment area, we've also got a 15-meter assessment area. That's under DPA number 1, the geotechnical hazards, and that's under review right now. So we might be looking at expanding it, reducing it, identifying other areas in town, so that the OCP is going to be updated with the development permit area.
So it will be updated eventually. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. No,
The next meeting of the Committee of the Whole will be on July 18th, 2023 at 3 p.m. And I'm looking to adjourn this meeting, and we'll be starting another meeting pretty soon. I think a lot of the things we talked about, or at least one, the most drawn-out piece is going to make it pretty quick in the next meeting. But looking to a motion to adjourn. Yeah, Councillor Kroll, Councillor DeAndretti, all those in favor? The motion carries, and we need at least 5 minutes, right? Do people need a bit more than that? This was a pretty long